Hello everyone, today I will be doing my 100 subscriber special where I tell you all what I would do in the theoretical situation where I was put in charge of Thomas and Friends. As you may or may not know, Thomas and Friends was put under hiatus after Series 24 and it is unlikely to continue into Series 25. The main reason this has happened is because of Mattel's ineptitude in marketing Thomas. From series 8 to 16, when the show was awful, the toys were actually very good. But then when the show became good in series 17, the toys became awful, so that didn't help. It also didn't help that Mattel and Andrew Brenner, who was the head writer, either clearly weren't communicating, Mattel just weren't listening to Brenner, or it was just a complete mess up where the continuity of the show didn't follow the films closely enough. One example is that in 2015, The Adventure Begins and Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure were both made into specials, and Series 20 follows on from these specials very closely, with Glynn from The Adventure Begins appearing, and characters who either first appeared or were reintroduced in Lost Treasure, such as Skiff, Rex, Mike, Bert, Daisy, Donald, and Douglas, all had episodes focused on them in Series 20. However, Series 20 didn't follow the two specials in 2015. You had a whole series in Series 19 and another special in The Great Race between Lost Treasure and Series 20, meaning young kids, the main target audience, could easily forget who these characters are. But one of the main issues has to be with how the episodes were released. I don't know much about TV channels in the US, but I do know that Mattel put Thomas on once a day on PBS at 6 AM, and then on to Nick Jr., a channel that you have to pay for, and there were no other ways to watch the new episodes other than fan uploads on YouTube. In the UK, I knew it was on Milkshake on Channel 5, but I never worked out what time it was on, so I was left with the fan uploads on YouTube as well. It was moved on to Netflix, but in the UK, I can only access Season 22, when I know that both Season 23 and 24 have been released, so they're 2 whole seasons behind in the UK at least. Mattel thought kids weren't responding to the more fan-liked content because it wasn't interesting enough, but really, kids weren't responding because there wasn't an easy way to watch it, and this led to the awful rebrand which was Blubber. Blubber failed to appeal to the people Mattel were trying to appeal to, and made long-term fans of the show now hate the show, and hence the show went on hiatus and has been unofficially cancelled. But making one thing clear, Thomas won't die. The books and the show has a fandom that is large enough and active enough that there will continue to be fan-made Thomas productions on YouTube for years to come, and many of them are better than most of the episodes from the last 3 series of the main show. So, on to what I'd do with the series. If you'd asked me a few years ago, I would have said I wouldn't change much and let them carry on with what they were doing. But now we have Blubber and the show's cancellation, I'm going to change course. I'm going to start by doing vaguely what they did with Doctor Who, in that I rename Series 1 to 24 of the original show Season 1 to 24, and then basically start a new show, calling the first series Series 1. And then I'm basically just going to start the whole show again and readapt the books. I am going to use CGI instead of models, as there's not as much as a limit on what we can and can't do, which should give us the option to adapt every Railway series story. Whilst I don't plan to adapt every Railway series story, I do plan to adapt all of Wilbur Tawdry's stories, although there will be some episodes with 2 stories in, like Whistles and Sneezes from Series 1 of the original series, and then pick and choose some of the better Christopher Awdry stories. And when that's done, I'm going to remake episodes from series 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21 of the original show. I planned out 10 series of the new show, and that took me to 259 episodes, needing one more for the 260 to get 10 series of 26 episodes. But I'll get on to that episode in a minute. I plan for the stories to be roughly in Railway series order, but changing it slightly, such as not having any narrow gauge stories until series 3, and keeping series 1 and 2 purely for standard gauge. And yes, I said I would adapt all of Wilbur Tawdry's stories, so that means we get standard gauge, narrow gauge, the small railway, and the mountain railway. You know, the engines that are in one book and have never appeared in the TV series. And now, onto the issue that is the locations. If you follow the Unlucky Tug's Twitter page, you may have noticed several threads in which he made about changes in the locations between the books and the TV series. Well, in my version, we are putting them all back to how they were in the books. In the TV series, Tidmouth is the main sheds, Knapford is the main station, and Brendam is the main docks. In the books, however, Tidmouth is the main sheds, main station, and the main harbour. Knapford is a small station with 3 platforms where the main line meets Thomas's branch line, and Brendam is a tiny docks at the end of Edward's branch line, so we're going to keep it that way. But that will also mean that most of the characters who work at Brendam Docks in the TV series, so Cranky, Carly, Big Mickey, Salty and Porter, will all move to work at Tidmouth Harbour. I'm also going to change the layout of Tidmouth Sheds, so it's like it is in the Christopher Audrey books. Instead of 7 berths with a turntable outside, it's going to be a round building with 1 track leading in and then a turntable inside so engines can go onto different tracks. This allows for there to be more engines in the shed, so more varied character interactions. I'm also removing the steam team. It may end up that those 7 or 8 engines get more episodes than the others, but we're just going to remove the whole idea that there are 7 or 8 main characters and they are the only ones who stay at Tidmouth Sheds. We're going to treat Tidmouth Sheds more like an real-life train shed, so whoever happens to be working in the yard at the time stays there. So that would probably mean that Edward usually stays at Wellsworth, and Thomas, Percy and Toby usually stay at Farquhar, but you can find ways to get them to come to Tidmouth when the story needs it. Now onto the cast. While I do favour the storytelling method of one narrator just telling the whole story and speaking for each of the characters, given we're doing it in CGI, it would look a bit weird if the characters' mouths are static while they are speaking, and Series 12 proved that the engines moving their mouths to the narrator speaking just doesn't work, so the engines are going to stay with different voice actors. I don't know that many voice actors, so I'm happy for the characters' voice actors to just remain the same as they are now. In terms of the narrator, I would be happy to get Mark Morgan back, but he would be my second choice. My first choice is Ted Robbins, someone who has narrated all of Christopher Audrey's books and has done a very good job of it. Now, on to some of the episodes. I'm going to talk about the series finales. The first series was fairly obvious. I'm just going through the books and putting the stories in order, combining some stories into one. The 26th episode ended up being Mrs. Kindly's Christmas, the end of a book and a good place to end the series. The second series finale was less obvious. Going through using the same tactic, the end of the second series got to rock and roll, partway through a book. So I held all of the narrow gauge stories back into series 3, moved stories from the twin engines from series 3 to series 2, and added in some stories that were in series 2 and 3 of the original run that weren't based on stories from the Railway series. And that made the series finale Thomas's Christmas Party, which makes sense as it's a year on from Mrs. Kindly's Christmas. Series 3, I ended with 4 books worth of stories about the narrow gauge engines, plus 1 about the mountain railway, and ended with Ducks and Dukes, which I thought was a good place to end the series as it's them celebrating Rheneas and Scarloi's 100th birthday. Series 4, I just again went through the books, introducing the small railway engines, got to the end of Wilbur Tawdry's books, and threw in 2 episodes from Series 3 of the original run, and ended with Thomas and Percy's Christmas Adventure. Series 5, I started on Christopher's books and threw in some episodes from Series 3 of the original run and ended with Henry Sees Red. Series 6, I finished off Christopher Audrey's books, put in some episodes from Season 5 and 6 of the original run, and ended with Centenary, the final Railway series story ever. Series 7, I went through episodes from Seasons 5, 6 and 7 of the original series, and ended with Thomas the Jet Engine, in my opinion one of the most fun episodes from the original run. I also introduced some new characters, which I will come back to later. Series 8, I used stories from Seasons 17 and 18 from the original run, and ended with the amazing episode that was Last Train for Christmas. Series 9, I used episodes from Season 19 and 20 from the original run, and ended with the two-part story Diesel's Ghostly Christmas. And Series 10, I used episodes from Season 21 and 20, and the Michael White episodes from the Blubber era, and I would effectively end with a three-part story, which is Cranky at the End of the Line, New Crane on the Dock, plus the first original story, which I will come back to. Now we've got to Series 11, and they're at the start of the original stories. It feels like a good time to bring up the production crew. In terms of animation, I'm happy for it to continue to be done by the current company, as I don't really see anything wrong with it, although they would have to stop the engine from bouncing. In terms of writers, well, I don't know loads of writers, but there is one person that I would be desperate to come back and be head writer, and that person is Andrew Brenner. He was the man who saved the Thomas franchise after the Sharon Miller era, and wrote several brilliant episodes during the season 17 to 21 run, wrote the amazing specials that were Tale of the Brave, The Adventure Begins, and Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure, and managed to make the specials The Great Race, Journey Beyond Sodor, and Big World Big Adventures, the film, not the series, which were completely ruined by the demands Mattel made him put in, but he made them watchable. He is one of the best writers I know, and therefore I will be begging him to come back and be head writer for my new series. Another writer I'd want is Michael White, as he was the only good writer from the Blubber era, and I'd want to see what he could do without all the restraints put on him by the nature of the episodes in the Blubber era. In terms of other writers, I don't really know. Most of the writers I liked from season 17 to 21 then ruins their reputation during Blubber, so I'm not that keen to get any of them back, and there aren't really any other writers I know, so at the moment we're left with Andrew Brenner and Michael White. Two more people I want involved. Not sure in what capacity, but I would love to get the Unlucky Tug and CO93 involved. Possibly as writers, possibly as script editors, or even just as consultants and test audiences. But I would love to get them involved as they know so much about the lore of Thomas the Tank Engine, and the ideas put forward by Tug in its reviews on how to fix things that went wrong are always amazing. And now we're back to the episodes I highlighted earlier. In Series 7 of the new series, I would adapt Jack Jumps In and A Friend in Need from Season 6 of the original run, thus introducing the pack back into Thomas and Friends. And I would hope, after Series 7 finishes, we could bring back the spin-off series, Jack and the Pack, which was made around the time Series 7 of the original run, but was cut short at 13 episodes when Hits brought the rights to Thomas. I would still want Pack episodes within the main show, but they could get a show to themselves where the railway characters only sometimes appear. And now the first original episode I had planned, which is actually based on a suggestion made, albeit probably jokingly, in one of the Unlucky Tug live streams at the start of lockdown earlier this year. So, we have Cranky at the End of the Line and New Crane on the Docks at the end of Series 10, which introduces Carly to the Dockside crew, and then, right at the end, Big Mickey, from Tugs, gains a face and speaks. For those who don't know, Tugs was a TV series made by David Mitton around the same time as Classic Thomas, featuring talking tugboats instead of talking engines. But, unfortunately, because it was amazing, it only lasted 13 episodes. Many props from Tugs were then moved onto the Thomas sets. The most prominent of these was the Big Mickey prop, which became such an integral part of the dock set that they remained when the show transitioned to CGI. And then, after appearing faceless in the show for 18 seasons, during season 21, he suddenly gained a face and starts speaking to them, in what is the best reveal ever.
Cranes working in perfect harmony.
Don't you mean 3 cranes? What?
So now you speak? You've been standing there silent all these years, Big Mickey, and you've never said a single word.
Well, you've never said a single word to me either.
So, for the last episode of Series 10, I intend to have it set at docks, and for there to be a fire that is bad, but the fire engines are able to put it out before it can do too much damage. Cranky would say something like, "That was close," and for Big Mickey just to say solemnly, "I've seen worse." Cranky, Carly, Salty, and Porter all look at each other confused, but the music and the atmosphere tells any audience that don't know about Tugs that a massive bombshell has just been dropped, all but confirming that Big Mickey is the same Big Mickey that was in Tugs, and the episode and the series ends. Then we come on to a new story arc that I plan to last either half a series or having a special, but it basically tells us how Big Mickey got from Big City Ports to Sodor, and him saying that diesel tugs quickly took over the Z stacks, and only Captain Star was still using the old tugs like 10 Cents, OJ, and Top Hat, but even they had to go at some point. He doesn't know what happened to them, but he thinks they were likely scrapped. The Fat Controller then tries to find out what happened to the Star Tugs, and he finds them at the end of the story arc and they come to Sodor, and that quickly starts another spin-off, remaking Tugs. About the Tugs remake, I plan to remake the first 13 episodes and then continue on from the original series, so clearly set in the past before Big Mickey came to Sodor. I don't intend for the Tugs characters to appear in Thomas very often, or vice versa, outside of the story arc about the Fat Controller finding out about the Star Tugs, as the general feel of the two shows was quite different, but they would still appear from time to time. So, that's what I would do if I was put in charge of Thomas and Friends. Have 10 series where I remake stuff from the books in the original run, then continue with new episodes written by Andrew Brenner, Michael White, and Unlucky Tug, and have 2 more shows, Jack in the Pack and Tugs. In terms of how the episodes will be broadcast, I will just put them on Netflix like they are now. Right, thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe, and you can follow me on Instagram by clicking on the link in the description. Before I go, here are the episodes I would make in order for the first 10 series of my new Thomas and Friends.